Top 100 Scary SCPs.
Item number SCP-3060. Object Class Keter. Special Containment Procedures. Individual instances of SCP-3060 are to be kept in high-security lockers within the storage wing of Site-64. All testing involving SCP-3060 requires the approval of both the Site Ethics Committee and Site Command. No more than 4 individuals may be infected by SCP-3060 for testing purposes at any given time. Individuals infected by SCP-3060 are to be kept in the Type 1 Standard Humanoid Containment Chambers within the Humanoid Anomaly Containment Wing of Site-64. Cells have been equipped with alarm systems to prevent instances from entering REM sleep outside of designated sleeping hours, approximately 2200 to 0600 local time. During designated sleep hours, all personnel are to evacuate from the radius of each infected individual's anomalous effect. Following termination of any individual affected by SCP-3060, containment personnel are to initiate site-wide lockdown and begin the Hypnos protocol to prevent the spread of infection. Description: Instances of SCP-3060 are small medical devices that superficially resemble continuous positive away pressure machines, CPAP machines. The individual materials that compose SCP-3060 instances are non-anomalous and operate identically to a typical CPAP machine of its size and make. The Foundation currently has 5 instances of SCP-3060 in its custody. 3060's anomalous effects become apparent when worn by a sleeping human. When an individual wearing an instance of 3060 enters their second REM cycle, a humanoid incorporeal entity, hereafter referred to as 3060A, will appear within a 5-meter radius of the individual and stand over them until they wake up. At this point, 3060A will disappear, and the individual wearing 3060 will become infected. From that point on, regardless as to whether the individual wears 3060, the 3060A entity will appear when they enter their second REM cycle each night and remain until awakening. While instances of SCP-3060A appear as featureless silhouettes upon first manifestation, they quickly take on a unique shape based on each infected individual. As such, SCP-3060A entities have no standard appearance. While a full list of observed SCP-3060A instances can be found in Document 3060-B, notable observed instances include a figure roughly the size of a human infant composed entirely of fused teeth, a humanoid superficially resembling an elderly woman dressed in dark clothes, lacking a mouth or eyes. The instance's arms are both severely injured with compound fractures visible. A partially disintegrated humanoid composed of ash, dressed in red lingerie. A naked humanoid covered in tire tracks and showing signs of severe crush injuries. A humanoid whose torso consisted of a large mouth. A clown. While an SCP-3060A entity stands within the presence of an infected individual, any additional human subject that enters a 50-meter radius of the infected will enter a catatonic state. At this point, an additional instance of 3060A will appear within the proximity of the infected individual. The additional 3060A entity will then approach the catatonic subject, phasing through solid matter if the subject is in a separate room. Upon arriving at the subject, the new SCP-3060A instance will phase its hand through the subject's skull and then vanish, causing the subject to immediately fall asleep. All subjects touched by 3060A entity in this matter become new instances of SCP-3060 infected upon awakening. Testing has shown that awakening the affected, whether through physical or auditory stimuli, following the appearance of an SCP-3060A entity, will cause the latter to immediately vanish and catatonic subjects to regain movement. Additionally, SCP-3060-A entities will not approach non-catatonic subjects outside the range of an infected individual's anomalous properties. Non-human subjects are immune to all of SCP-360's effects. All attempts to communicate with 360-A instances have thus far been met with failure. SCP-3060 infection has long-term effects on the health of infected persons. After at least 3 days, infected individuals often begin to display fatigue, mood changes, impaired performance, and memory problems, even after obtaining a full night's sleep. Infected individuals often report frequent nightmares, though no central themes or correlations have been observed in the content of said dreams. Within a month, infected individuals will often develop visual and auditory hallucinations, as well as delusions that their mind is no longer their own, but rather has been stolen by someone or something. Soon after, infected individuals descend into full psychosis as they become unable to distinguish the content of their dream from reality. In extreme cases, after at least 2 months of infection, hair loss, conitis subita, partial or complete blindness, somatic complaints, cataplexy, and alien limb syndrome have been observed. Attempts by medical staff to alleviate these conditions in the long term have thus far been met with failure, though symptoms are delayed in individuals with previous diagnosis of insomnia. Sleep deprivation has likewise proven effective in delaying the onset of symptoms of SCP-3060 infection. Research into a cure is currently ongoing. If no human subjects enter the area of SCP-3060 infected individuals' effect during REM sleep for 7 consecutive days, or the infected individual dies, an instance of 3060-A will appear. The SCP-3060-A entity will then proceed to search for the nearest sleeping human. Upon locating of this individual, 3060-A will stand over them until they enter their next REM sleep cycle, at which point 3060-A will reach into their skull and vanish. At this point, the sleeping individual will become infected. Should the sleeping individual awaken during this process, or SCP-3060-A be unable to locate a suitable subject within 3 hours, it will vanish without spreading the SCP-3060 infection. Addendum 3060-A Recovery. Foundation agents first became aware of SCP-3060 on March 21, 2015, when the entire census of the Portland Sleep Medicine Clinic became infected following a volunteer sleep study using SCP-3060 to prevent hypnagogic sleep paralysis. All infected individuals therefore were brought into Foundation custody, and all records related to the study seized by Foundation operatives. None of these records seized indicated the origin of 3060 instances, and all staff associated with the project died in their sleep shortly upon being brought into the Foundation custody. Autopsies revealed large quantities of SCP-3966-A within the staff members' cerebrospinal fluid. An investigation into Dr. Cynthia Zhao, the primary investigator of the Portland Sleep Medicine study associated with SCP-3060, uncovered her to be a frequent user of SCP-2876. Upon MTF Omicron Rho, aka the Dream Team, investigation into potential ONAD involvement in the creation of SCP-3060, contacts within the ONAD collective have denied responsibility for SCP-3060 and have indicated that SCP-2876 app had encountered no less than 4 internal breaches of security, particularly in areas of user information. Since its launch, Mobile Task Force Omicron Rho's investigation is still ongoing. Addendum 3060-B Video Log Transcript of Test 3060-03 Forward. The following events took place on April 2, 2015 as part of the initial containment experiments for SCP-3060. An SCP-3060 infected individual was placed in a standard humanoid containment cell with instructions to go to sleep after being fitted with sensors to monitor brainwave patterns and vital signs. D1260, D2860, D2106, and D2306 were placed in nearby cells within the same holding block as the infected individual. All cells were equipped with CCTV cameras feeding to the same monitor bank. At approximately 2340, the infected individual entered her second REM cycle. 2345, 21 seconds. D1260 is playing solitaire at the table in his cell. D2860 is reading on her cot. D2106 is pacing within her cell. D2306 has fallen asleep sitting in his cell's chair. 2345, 58 seconds. SCP-3060-A-1 appears standing over the infected individual and resembles a headless humanoid with arms and legs replaced by spinal columns. Shortly after, an additional 4 instances of SCP-3060-A appear. Each additional instance resembles a featureless humanoid silhouette. The instances remain standing over the infected for the next 5 minutes. All D-Class personnel appear to have been catatonic. Those D-Class awake have expressions of distress upon their face. 2351. SCP-3060-A-2 turns and leaves the infected's cell, phasing through the door and entering the hallway, where it then phases into D2306's cell. SCP-3060-A-2 stands over D2306 for several seconds, then bends over and places its face near D2306's ear before reaching into his skull. 2353, 30 seconds. 3060-A-3 phases through the floor and vanishes for several moments before phasing up through the floor of D2860's cell, through her cot, then through her. 3060-A-3 remains motionless for several moments as it looks down at D2860, who appears to be struggling against her catatonic state. 3060-A-3 then slowly reaches out and closes D2860's eyes with one hand, then reaches into her skull. 2355, 45 seconds. 3060-A-2 removes its hand from D2306's skull and takes the shape of a human male with mathematical symbols in place of facial features. SCP-3060-A-2 vanishes. 2356, 15 seconds. SCP-3060-A-4 climbs a cell wall and phases through the ceiling and vanishes for several moments before phasing into D2106's cell through the ventilation grate. The instance drops down and walks around D2106 as she struggles against her catatonic state. 2106 falls over. 36A-4 wraps its arms around 2106 and begins to caress her skull. After several moments of this, 3060-A-4 reaches into 2106's skull. 2357, 46 seconds. 3060-A-3 removes its hand from D2860's skull and takes the shape of a humanoid composed of a tightly wound thread. A variety of spiders are visible crawling in and out of the openings along 3060-A-3's body. 3060-A-3 vanishes. 2358, 42 seconds. 3060-A-5 leaves the infected's cell, phasing through the walls from cell to cell before finally arriving at D1260's cell. SCP-3060-A-5 stands across from the table from D1260, staring at him for several moments while caressing his hand. 1260 struggles against his catatonic state. 3060-A-5 reaches into D1260's skull. 100, 47 seconds. SCP-3060-A-4 removes its hand from D-2106's skull and takes the shape of a featureless white humanoid dressed in a Foundation lab coat. 3060-A-4 vanishes. 0100, 2 minutes 30 seconds. SCP-360-A-5 removes its hand from D-1260's skull and takes the shape of a featureless black humanoid dressed in an amalgamation of paraphernalia from various authoritarian regimes. 3060-A-5 vanishes. 0100, 5 minutes 38 seconds. 3060-A-1 remains standing over the infected until she awakens at approximately 0450 hours.
Addendum 3060-C, Interview Log 3060-6. The following interview was conducted as part of routine mental health monitoring for SCP-3060 infected individuals on March 3, 2016. Interviewed, Researcher Joanna Corbin. Interviewer, Researcher Roland Farrow. Forward, the interview took place approximately 1.5 months following Researcher Corbin's infection by SCP-3060 during the 15th of January 2016 containment breach of an instance of SCP-3060-A. Researcher Corbin had begun to report visual and auditory hallucinations 1 week earlier. Due to her knowledge on SCP-3060's effects and prior diagnosis of insomnia, Researcher Corbin has shown remarkable resistance to SCP-3060's hallucinogenic effects. Begin log. Evening, Joanna.
Evening, Roland. Sorry if I'm not exactly 100% today. To be frank, I'm exhausted and it's hard to concentrate when the walls are bleeding. Don't sit there.
May I ask why?
Trust me, Roland. I'll be much more composed if I don't have to watch you sit in that chair.
The hallucinations have progressed to that severity already.
They have. It's like my eyes are constantly getting these little pop-ups of nonsense. And then there is this fucking voice that keeps commenting on things. Yeah, I'm talking about you. Shut up.
The auditory hallucinations are constant at this point then?
Just the one. I personally like to think it's the voice of the 3068 that's creeping on me, but I have no way to prove that, and it's not like it's going to tell the truth.
These auditory hallucinations, what are they?
Comment on thoughts I have, on things I see, sometimes asks me about myself. I have to say, when the other infected said they felt like their mind wasn't their own, I didn't really know what they were saying. But I sure as hell do now.
Right. These auditory hallucinations, what kind of things do they say?
Fuck if I know, Roland. If it is, it's doing a pretty shitty job at it. Honestly, I'd say it's just here for the headspace and to enjoy the ride, but again, what the hell do I know? Can we be done, please?
I'm afraid we have just a few more things to get through before we're done. Bear with me.
All right.
How you are describing this auditory hallucination, you make it sound like a separate intelligence. I'm writing down a few questions that I'm going to want you to ask it.
The words marched like ants off the page. Roland, I can't read this. Can't read.
I'll dictate them then. I got a hunch, but I'm going to need some confirmation before I can move forward in that direction. 1. What do you call yourself? 2. Are you a separate entity from Joanna Corbin? 3. Do you exist within her mindscape, or are you based in some other...
Jesus! Fire! Roland! Fire!
Christ, Joanna, what the hell was that?
You got to the second question, then burst into flames, Roland. I couldn't watch you die like that. I can't answer these questions. I fucking can't do this. Get away from me!
Very well. I'll leave the list with you. See if you can ask them when you have a less visually clustered moment.
Addendum 3060-D. Update 22/10/2016. On October 2nd, 2016, Curvier pharmaceutical advertisement for SCP-3060 appeared in over 100 publications in the United States, Canada, and Europe. By the time the mass censorship protocols could be enacted, and the source of the ad was traced to a Curvier logistics warehouse in Seattle, approximately 3,000 instances of SCP-3060 had been shipped, with MTF Alpha 4 Pony Express operatives able to stop 2,700 of them in transit. An additional 270 instances of SCP-3060 were later captured at their destinations. Currently, 30 instances of 3060 remain uncontained. Warehouse staff were oblivious to the effect of the devices when interviewed, having all been hired within the last 2 weeks. Over half of these individuals were users of SCP-2876 prior to their hire date. All warehouse staff brought into Foundation custody died in their sleep shortly afterward. As before, large quantities of SCP-3966-A were found within the warehouse staff's CSF during autopsy. An investigation into both Curvier Pharmaceutical and Curvier Logistics is ongoing. As of 25/10/2016, an unknown number of SCP-3060 infected individuals are currently believed to be uncontained, with outbreaks occasionally occurring in several major metropolitan areas. Attempts to contain 3060 infected individuals are ongoing, due to SCP-3060 infection remaining largely undetectable within the general public until end-stage symptoms manifest. Several mobile task forces are on standby to investigate reports of multiple psychotic breaks and acts of violence occurring within a short time frame within the same geographic area. SCP-3060's object class has subsequently been updated to Keter. Pandemic levels of SCP-3060 infection are currently being considered a potential AK class end-of-the-world scenario. If we could figure out the inner and outer workings of this anomaly, it's definitely something that could be beneficial to weaponize, not only using it against opposition and possible threats, but, in a culling of the herd scenario, this would definitely be useful. It would be pretty low-key, and nobody would really catch on as to what was happening. So this would get 2 thumbs up from me, if we can just figure out how to control it. Again, guys, thanks for hanging out. Make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell, like and comment, all that stuff. I'll be back soon with another one. I'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.